Hi, it's Buck again, and I'm back again. Back again with another slice of life. Well, life is fascinating. It's wonderful. It's filled with surprises. It's filled with bad things. It's filled with wonderful things. It's filled with the miraculous. It's filled with the common and the everyday. Sadly, it's also filled with disease. I'm not here to talk about the pandemic that's hitting us now. A long time ago, I used to smoke. I started smoking when I was a young sailor, and I got up to 2.5 packs a day. Cigarettes, really cheap back then. I could buy them in the PX for 15 cents, 10 cents a pack, carton for $1. And so I could afford to smoke. I smoked for years. I figured, everybody said, you don't want to quit, you don't want to start because you can't quit. And I said, oh, I can quit anything. Well, I couldn't. Years rolled on. Cigarettes were no longer 10 cents a pack. In fact, I got out of the Navy and I had to buy them full retail. And they were about 35 cents a pack, and then one day they went up to 50 cents a pack. Now I was smoking over 2 packs a day. That was $30 a month, and I wasn't getting anything from it. So I decided I'm going to quit. In fact, the only thing I ever got out of smoking was bad. I burned myself. I had ashes fall on my clothes and burn tiny little holes in it. I've had them drop in my seat when I'm driving, a cigarette butt, and I'm trying to squirm and pick cigarette out from between my, hey, that's really, well, anyway. I was 30 years old. I tried to quit. I had quit hundreds of times and was never able to. In fact, one time I remember driving down the highway, mouth tasted like garbage. I was going to quit. Smoked the last cigarette out of the pack, rolled down the window, threw the pack out the window, which you get fined for that now. I didn't even think about it then. I had a wonderful lighter that I really liked. It was a unique pipe lighter. And anyway, I threw it out the window. Got as far as the next 7-Eleven, pulled off, bought myself another pack of cigarettes, and continued smoking for years. Quitting smoking is hard. I wasn't able to do it, so finally one day I was in, I think, a Walden's bookstore. That's used to be one of my favorite places to hang out. And I saw a book on self-hypnosis, and one of the things it said, it was a pocketbook, and it said, quit smoking. Use self-hypnosis to quit smoking. So I bought the book, I read it, learned the technique, used it to quit smoking. It did work. It was still the hardest thing I think I've ever done, but I managed to quit. The years rolled on. After learning how to meditate, to do self-hypnosis, I learned how to meditate. And I used a combination of the two techniques, and it was really unique. It was something nobody else does it. I've read meditation techniques, and I've never seen anyone do it the way I do it. And that's fine. Whatever works for you works. I got out of the Navy, been out for a long time, opened a cabinet shop in Cave Junction. Now, I told you earlier the story about having to go to Florida when my mother needed help because my dad had to go in the hospital. Well, one of the things, he had 2 things he was going into the hospital for. One was a clogged artery on his neck, and they needed to unclog it. And the second thing was he had skin cancer on his ear. His ear was just being eaten away with skin cancer. And with my time with him before the operation, I saw what skin cancer looked like, at least his. I had to shop on the highway, and I began to develop these little teeny sores, and they looked like my dad's skin cancer. And there was just a few, but time went on, and they itched and they burned, and they constantly oozed this plasma type stuff. And they look like little craters, tiny little things like pimples, the size of pimples but bigger. And they crater-like, and they oozed, and they burned. Especially when it was hot and I began to sweat. Well, I never went to the doctor because I didn't have any money. It's what happens when you're poverty-stricken. We just made it from hand to mouth. Couldn't afford to go to the doctor. So time rolled on, and eventually about a year passed. One day, it was a hot summer day in Cave Junction, Oregon. I'm sweating profusely. I've got sawdust from the table saws and whatever. And I'm just miserable with these sores. And finally, I just couldn't take it anymore. I closed up the shop. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Closed up the shop. Went over to the river. Fell in just to clean off. Went for a short swim. Soothed those sores. Then I went in and I lay down on my bed. It was about 4 o'clock by the time I got into the bed. Usually when I meditated twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. Usually it was anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. I went into the deepest state of meditation that I've ever been into. Meditation slant self-hypnosis. I literally visualized the white blood cells eating away at these sores and just eating these cancerous cells, the good cells eating, destroying the bad cells. I did this until I was exhausted. And usually meditation energizes you. I was exhausted. And I ended up falling asleep and didn't wake up until the next morning. And that wasn't unusual for me. It just never happened. Well, it did then. The next morning when I got up, I went over to a mirror and I looked at it. My face, there wasn't a blemish on it. I had willed everything out of existence. That was in about 1988, somewhere around in there. I haven't been plagued with them since. Well, a few years rolled by. I think about 10. I think it was in the mid-90s. I had moved, and still lived in Cave Junction, but I had moved from the river into a more country setting. And still had the shop, though, one-man shop out in the middle of the woods. One day I noticed I had a pain in my elbow. Right here. Right there. Wasn't too bad, but it was bothersome. I kind of ignored it. Figured I just probably pulled a muscle or something. Let it go. But the next day it didn't go away, and every time I would use my arm it would hurt. Well, I figured what it was. It was arthritis. I was getting arthritis in my elbow. I realize now I might have been wrong. It might have been tendonitis. I don't know. But I assumed it was arthritis. Things had changed. I had started down the Methodist path for becoming a lay pastor. Lay pastor in the Methodist program leads to full ordination. You end up with a master's degree in college. But it's a program designed for adults that have already had other careers. And anyway, I was enrolled in that program in Grants Pass and had been for about a year. And I had become really involved in the Methodist Church in Cave Junction, Emmanuel United Methodist Church. instead of doing what I did before when I had the sores on the side of my face, instead of doing that, I went upstairs, sat down in the same chair that I used to meditate, but it was also my prayer chair, and I began to pray. And I asked God in prayer, because I know God can heal you. He can heal us. And so I prayed for God to heal my arm. And I heard a voice. And the voice said, I never do for you what you can do for yourself. You can heal yourself, and then write about it. I didn't say it with that inflection that I used. It was just matter of fact. You can heal yourself, and then write about it. As soon as I heard the voice, I remembered the incident, which I'd totally forgotten about, on the side of my face. And I said, oh, all right. So I looked at one of the things I learned to do years earlier was how to see auras, the energy field that surrounds the human body. And we all react to it whether we see it or not. I looked at my elbow just to see what I was dealing with, and I couldn't see anything. I was too close. So I went over to the house, and I got in front of the mirror in the bathroom. It was the best. We had a good wide mirror in the bathroom, and there was a blank wall behind us. And I held my arm out like this, and I looked in the mirror over there, and I could see the energy field running down my arm. And then when it came to the elbow, right here, there was a break, a definite stop in the flow of the field. And then maybe an eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch, but a definitely black line there to stop the flow. And then it started over again. And above it were little dark clouds, 3 or 4 appeared to be just almost like rain clouds, little black puffy clouds. I said, oh. So I took my right arm and I ran it down. And this is something you can do. The auras attract. They also repel each other depending on whatever. Anyway, I started pulling the aura, the good part, and I just pulled it past the break, which had flowed together when I did it, and then it broke again. And then I did it again. And I kept repeating this until my arm got too tired to hold up. And at the same time I was doing that, I was visualizing the bone in my elbow. And I visualized, I'm in kind of a semi-trance state, and I visualized the elbow, and I could see that the bone was all red. And I don't know why I did this, but I was also willed blood, the flow of blood in the blood cells and the blood vessels, willed it to that area to cleanse, lubricate the bone, whatever. It just seemed like I should do it, so I did it. I did that every day, at least once. I remember I did it every day, but I might have done it 2 times a day. But I think I only did it once, usually in the morning. It took 5 days. At the end of 5 days, all the pain was gone. Every day it was better. But at the end of the 5th day, there was no pain at all. None, absolutely none. That was in the mid-90s, I'm not sure when. I think around 1995. This is 2020. 25 years ago. I have had, actually it has come back, and as soon as it has, I sat down and I've done the same thing. And but this time, I don't wait. I don't wait a year. As soon as I feel the twinge, if I have it on the 2nd day, then I sit there and then I do it. And it doesn't take very, it only takes 5-10 minutes, and that's it. This is what I want you to get out of this little slice of life. It was my mother who told me, Buck, you can do anything you set your mind to. I want you to remember that. You can do anything you set your mind to. But you have to be able to focus your mind. And that's the value of meditation. The state of meditation is nothing more than the state that you get into when you're reading a good book, or you're trying to solve a problem, you're working on a problem, and you get so involved in it that you blank out everything else around you. That's meditation, my friend. That's the state that you want your mind in. When you have something that's physically wrong with you, focus on it. I don't care what it is. I would never tell you, if you have breast cancer, for example, not to go to the doctor, but to will it out of existence, because I don't know that you have the confidence in your abilities to do that. But do it with the doctor. If you can't afford a doctor, then you do it. And I'm here to tell you, it works. It absolutely works. And in the weeks to come, I work full time, so I have a hard time doing this. Not a hard time doing this. I have a hard time finding time to do this. In the weeks to come, I will show you tricks, how you can develop your mind. They're not tricks. I use the word tricks, but they're not really tricks. They're real. How to be able to control your mind so that your mind can control things that are 15, 20 feet away from you. You can see it work. I can show you how it works. It's the mind. We're made in God's image, and God doesn't look like you and I. It's the mind and the spirit. And the mind and the spirit that are united, conjoined. That's the image of God. You can do it. Go with God.